What's up, and thank you for checking out the Hospitality Strategy Lab. My name is Jason Littrell. I'm here with Sarah Mars from the Overproof podcast and the Overproof Instagram channel. This is an incredible resource. There's no punches pulled. It's the raw, honest truth. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us from Jakarta in the evening. Thank you so much.
It is a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right, so tell me about your Instagram channel.
So I founded the Instagram basically out of need. So long story, very short. Back in 2021, my husband and I, we opened a little cocktail bar in New Zealand, and we were doing so well. We were winning awards. We had lines out the door. We were super, super busy. And then about 2 years into running that business, we kind of had this big epiphany that we had no money in our bank account. And I stepped back from the business service-wise because we had a child, and started working for a hospitality tech company and working with hundreds of other businesses in Australia and New Zealand. One thing that I realized when I did this is, I want to say 70% of the people that I talked to, so these were like managers and owners of hospitality businesses, had no idea what metrics they should be looking at, where to even start, because they were so overwhelmed with just running the business that they didn't know where to even start when looking at the operations, looking at the financial side of things. So Overproof was really started as, for me, a way of sharing the basics of running a hospitality business that you don't get taught quite often, because you get thrown into management, or you start a business but your managers have never taught you that, because it's not something that is naturally shared in the industry. So really, it's just a place for me to share the ABCs of running a venue or working in the industry without overcomplicating things, without having to pay for that information, because a lot of it's hidden, and also just having a bit of honest transparency, because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't obtain before we opened our venue when I was asking other people that worked in the industry.
What are the KPIs that you care about?
So if we're talking financial KPIs, I think that the biggest metric that people should be tracking is just their prime costs. So there's the two easiest places to make an impactful change in your business, and that is your labor and that is your cost of goods, because those are the most expensive things, generally speaking, for hospitality businesses. If you're tracking your labor and your cost of goods, you have a pretty good idea of where you're sitting financially as a business. If you don't know those numbers, which again, I would say most people don't actually know those numbers, it's really hard to gauge if you're actually making any profit. You can be busy every single day, but if you aren't tracking those numbers and keeping them in line, then you could be busy but not have any money in the bank account. And so essentially you've just...
In your opinion, what is a good number? What is a good prime cost percentage?
So,
in your opinion?
I mean, this really depends on your overheads. It depends on your location, where you are, how much you're spending on other things as well. Industry standard that I would recommend is combined 60% or less. Obviously, this depends on how much rent you pay, all of the other fees that are involved with running a business. But if those combined are 60%, that was what I would say would be the higher end of where you want that to sit. I would be hoping for closer to 50, but I understand that in today's economy, that's a very big challenge to get down to that number.
When you start working with owners, how do you begin to even tackle these problems or even understand them?
So I think the first thing that you need to do is actually figure out how much you're spending, right? So that is either, I would say there's 3 different levels of how you can track all of these things. But if we were just looking at your stock, for example, you can either have a spreadsheet. The problem with a spreadsheet is it's not live. You can have your POS system, which most people don't use as well as they could be using. And so you can see all of your outgoings. Most POS systems these days, you can receive your goods through them as well. Best solution is you get an integrated system that's specifically designed for your stock management, and that records your incomings, outgoings, and it's connected with your POS system as well. The software
POS?
company...
Are you saying? I'm sorry, I'm digging through the Kiwi accent. POS? Pause. Okay.
Oh,
Pause means
sorry.
POS.
Yeah.
We always, like in the US, we always just say POS. Got it.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. That might be the Kiwi shortening everything. Yeah. Sorry. We call it pause. The software company I was working for actually did both your labor and your cost of goods, and it was integrated with your POS so that you could see that live as you were trading throughout the day. What I think most people get really overwhelmed with is if you try and do everything at once, it's almost impossible, especially if your business is already operating. Because most of the owners who don't know these numbers, they don't know them because they're working in the business. So typically, what I would say is if you don't know where to start, like pick whatever you think your biggest pain point is and start chipping away at that. But you don't need to do everything at once. For example, if you know that your stock is out of control, you're not sure of your cost of goods, you haven't costed out your recipes yet, just pick your top 5 or 10 selling recipes and get those costed first. Because if those ones are the ones that you're making the most revenue off, that's where you can have the biggest profit increases over time. And getting the cost of goods right on those, for example, could be tens of thousands of dollars throughout the year. Whereas if you go and concentrate on trying to get all of your stock costed, that's going to take a huge amount of your time, and costing your sugar correctly over the year is not going to increase your profit significantly or be meaningful for the time that you've put into it.
Right. One of my favorite one of your posts was the overrated versus underrated, and I think you did a talk on this in Greece, or you did a talk about this in Italy or somewhere like that. Tell me about your overrated, underrated. What's overrated, what's underrated?
So, I mean, there's a lot, right? I think one thing that is very much overrated and underrated. So first of all, the talk was actually BCB Berlin, and it actually wasn't on overrated, underrated. That was just something I put out there so people could get to understand my ethos behind hospitality a little bit more. I think sometimes we just overcomplicate things in hospitality. At the end of the day, like cocktails can be as amazing and creative, and like I'm from a bar background, so I'll lean more towards that. You can be super complex and make the craziest stuff, but at the end of the day, if your service is not great and you're not willing to serve a vodka soda to somebody, if that's what they're after and they just want something that's approachable and refreshing, and I love a vodka soda because it's easy and like it's just delicious. That's what hospitality is all about. It should be about being hospitable and about inviting people into your environment like you would your house. And I got a lot of kickback about saying that because obviously you're charging people. And I said that I think I'm going on a bit of a sideways tangent here, but one of my like key philosophies is that they're guests and not customers. And so the reason behind that is because if you see everyone as a customer, you're seeing it as a very transactional activity. Whereas if you see everybody as a guest, then it's like welcoming them into your house. If you're welcoming a guest into your house, when people kicked off about saying you need to have boundaries, absolutely. I wouldn't expect someone to come into my house and like move my furniture around and throw stuff on the floor or like make a mess in the bathroom, anything like that. You still need to have boundaries with people in your house. But it's about the expectation that they're coming into your space and you're making them feel relaxed and you're making them feel comfortable and you're looking after them through that whole experience. So that's kind of my view on what hospitality should be. And I think we get a little bit caught up in all the rest of the theatrics behind it or the ego behind it a little bit more. So I think just bringing it back to basics a little bit. With my overrated and underrated post that I did recently, I think it's things that people concentrate on that don't give you enough return on investment. So things like, I can't even remember what I said in that post.
Like you were talking about like rotovaps, you were talking about like
yes.
just like really, really complex things. You're talking about awards, saying that awards were not, were overrated.
So, I mean, there's this big thing with getting in like the world's 50 best, which obviously is great for like recognition and you'll get more people through your door. But at the end of the day, like an award doesn't pay your bills. having regulars pays your bills, having people that love your venue and feel really welcome and want to return to your venue will pay your bills. Getting a rota. I walked into a cafe, just like a random cafe in Jakarta the other day, and there was two other people in that cafe, and they had a rotovap sitting on the counter. And we were like, "What do you use that for?" For distilling some coffee beans. But if your venue is empty, why are you investing 30,000? I don't know what it is in US, but in New Zealand it's $30,000 in this contraption where you could be spending it on marketing, or you could be spending it on staff training, or anything that's actually going to give you a return on that investment, rather than something that looks really cool or seems
Right.
like the trendy thing to have for a huge amount
Also,
of
like,
money.
also at best, it's really cool and might appeal to a couple of people. At worst, it might be dangerous,
Yeah,
literally harmful to your staff.
yeah.
So one of the things that you said was underrated was a 1 to 2 page document that explains what your business is and what it's all about. What belongs on those 2 pages?
I think what belongs on the 2 pages is why the staff are there. So one thing that I think is really important to share with your staff is your goal and your vision for what they are there to bring to the team. Instead of being like, this is how, I once started a job where I was given like a 50-page training manual. I'm never going to remember anything on those pages. But if somebody tells me I'm coming to that venue to make that venue, we want to be known as the best place in town for X, Y, and Z. If you get everyone enrolled in that vision, then everyone has one goal that they're working towards together. I think that needs to be on the page. And any little key finer touches, but it needs to be the overall vision for why everyone is there and working together. I don't think that saying the whole sequence of service on sheets and sheets and sheets of paper is ever going to give you any true value. That needs to
Hmm.
be trained in person.
Can you give me an example of like of how you've worked with the client and like some of the things that you've seen? I mean, aside from Teresa, like, which is one of the most decorated bars in New Zealand. So you guys had a 1 or 2 page, and this was from my understanding is that like this was a learning experience where you were like you started the business with your husband, got a bunch of
Hmm.
awards, and realized, shit, we're not making any money at all.
Yeah,
And then you're like, okay, all right, we're gonna get systems oriented and
yeah,
start plugging in the gaps. Is that when you did you implement this stuff for Teresa,
yeah,
or
absolutely.
did
And
it
it would
come
have.
later?
So no. So it kind of came at the same time that I started working for this company, because at the same time I started working for this company, it really was a true blessing. Learn all of the financial stuff that I had not learnt before we started the business. And because we were so busy and we hadn't ever run out of money, but we hadn't even made a lot of money either, it just kind of just got pushed to the side. Working with like other businesses in New Zealand, what specifically do you want to know about working with other businesses? Sorry.
No, I mean, do you deliver them a manual, or do you like how do you onboard a new client?
Yeah, so now I'm purely like, I'm not working in a consulting capacity at all. I'm working purely in an educational capacity, because that's what I'm really like passionate about, is just sharing some of this information without it being behind a paywall, because I think that's what we're really lacking in the industry. So I don't have consulting clients as such. However, I think what I was doing for the previous 2 years when I was working with people with the financial reporting was, first of all, identifying what their biggest problem was. So if it's labor or if it was cost of goods. And you would be shocked at how many people are still using paper for their roster or sending it out via WhatsApp. It's crazy. And you have no control when you're doing that. So you can't see throughout the day how much you're paying against your sales. You have no visibility if people are like clocking on an extra 15 minutes early, and that's costing you every single day an extra 50 or $100. You don't have your rostered hours versus your actual hours. So it's just getting people to commit to putting in the work to actually figure out what those numbers are so that they can get a starting point. I think that a lot of people that I was working with one-on-one, they kind of had their heads in the sand, similar to what we did, to be fair, because
Do you think that they had their heads in the sand because it was easier, or because they just didn't know what they were doing? I mean,
I think
did they know that their head was in the sand?
I think there's a bit of like fear, and then there is also a little bit of shame involved, because when you don't know what you're doing, it's really hard when you get to the point where you feel like you've lost a bit of control to find someone that can give you that advice when maybe you've been running the business for 5 years already, and now that the economy is like not doing so hot, you're at a point where you really need help. But because you haven't been looking at those numbers, like a common theme that I've seen with other business owners is that when you've got so deep in, it's almost like a little bit of shame because you've never done this stuff before. And it's really hard to admit to not only yourself, but to somebody else that you don't know really what you're doing. So I think there was a little bit of that. And then there's a huge part as well of just overwhelm. Like, hospitality business owners are the busiest people in the world, and they are going more than like a normal job for sure. These people are working like 12, 13, 14-hour days, and to find the time to do the admin on top of that is really, really difficult.
It's really interesting that you mentioned that, because I'm rereading this book, Principles by Ray Dalio, and Principles on Life and Work, and it's really fascinating about how he built his business in Bridgewater Capital, one of the biggest like investment firms. But the same principles apply to running a bar. It's like everybody has to, and to your point, like everybody has to be working in lockstep to a very simple, understandable goal, as in, where we make the best Manhattan in New York City, or like, this is what we do. This is how we do it. And this is what all of our subsequent decisions are based on. How would you characterize some of the the principles that you would hope that people would strive towards in their businesses? Like, is it the minutia? Is it the macro goals?
I think that a lot, like the biggest thing that is missed, and when it comes to most venues that I go into, or that my husband and I go into now, is just the little things. So, I mean, there's so many different angles I could tackle here, but it's like, if you take care of the small things, if you care about the little things, like keeping a section tidy, keeping it dry, making sure that every guest in your venue has water. If you care about the little things, the big things will happen. I don't know how to finish the sentence. The big things will come along with them. I think just getting control of the basics, just the ABCs, like if you're looking at cocktails, for example, learn how to balance a lemonade before moving on to like a daiquiri. That was the first thing I ever learned to make behind the bar, was just like a lemonade. If you're talking about service, like making sure that every single guest is said hello to like within 2-3 seconds of walking in the door, and they're not standing looking lost. It's like keeping everything tidy and clean. Like,
Right. I was looking at I was looking at another one of your posts. I'm like straight up been stalking you. You're like, take your fucking apron off before you go to the bathroom. How about that?
Yeah, that and clean your ice machine, guys. My gosh, the amount of venues
Yeah.
I've started working in and it's moldy inside, or like, it's just like, if you take pride in the space and pride in what you're doing, everything else I think will follow with that, and you'll attract other people that want to be a part of that as well. So
Right.
it's just starting with that.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a latest obsession of mine, is just basic project management, as in assigning task, accountability, recurring tasks, and deadlines.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding with my clients is that we're oftentimes, like, as almost as a matter of course, that we're sacrificing the important at the altar of the urgent. And so we're saying, like, we're constantly firefighting all day long, being like, oh my God, this is the latest disaster. This bartender called in, somebody quit, the ice machine broke down, whatever it is. And meanwhile, the business is falling apart because the fundamentals and the important things that are driving the business aren't being moved forward. And so I use a very simple project management system to just be like, okay, every 3 months, like, we're going to look at this, or every month we're going to look at the ice machine, make sure the ice machine is clean, and you're responsible, and this is when it has to be done. And like just decision and task management is something that I really think about a lot.
Yeah.
We make a lot of decisions that just don't matter at all.
I think it's
What do you think
really
about that?
hard to get any further in anything if all you're doing is reacting to the situation all the time instead of actually planning what your next steps are going to be.
Yeah. And I think another thing that I think is kind of underrated is that people don't understand when they're more creative and when they're more practical thinking. And like some people are
Mhm.
night people. If you're going to bed at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, then you are like there's like a kind of person. I wake up at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning a lot of times, because I'm one of those obnoxious morning people, and I go to bed at
My
8.
god.
Well, this is I mean, part of this was because I had a kid and like helping him fall asleep so he stays asleep means like going to sleep with him, and so I still do that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times people they work outside of their outside of the times that they should be working on
Yeah.
specific things and like blocking out like you are really really good at marketing. Like you're really good at communicating your thoughts and ideas. Is there a time of day that you find yourself to be particularly creative?
Interestingly, I always wake up from my sleep with ideas, and so I'll wake up and I'll write them down. But to be completely honest, I think it's whenever I have time. Now that I have a kid, I say I've never been
A
so
3-year-old.
efficient. Yeah, I've never been so efficient in my life. It's like whenever I can fit stuff in. Now he's in daycare in Jakarta, so it's a little bit easier. But I tend to do things in chunks. I might sit down and just figure stuff out for 2 hours, and then I'll take a break for a little bit and come back to stuff when I'm feeling refreshed again. But I don't think there's a certain time of the day. I think maybe I have an afternoon slump. First thing in the morning, I'm switched on and I'm ready to go. And then usually I find another little zhuzh at night after he goes to bed around like 8 o'clock, and I'll sit down and I'll do work for a couple more hours then, which is probably opposite to everybody else in the world, either end of the day.
I mean, I find myself with the same things, but it's like sometimes I'm like these are the times that I should be working on creative ideas. These are the times I should be working on mindless, boring things that just need to get done.
Like, yeah, that's true. I would say the morning is definitely more creative. That's when inspiration tends to strike.
Yeah, I mean, again, I just cannot overstate how good your Instagram channel is. It is
Oh, thank
very,
you.
very good. The way it's delivered, the advice, and how does somebody work with you? How does somebody pay you for your brain?
They can message me directly, or I have an email they can contact me by, which is just partnerships@sarahdawnmars.com. I really truly believe in what I'm doing with Overproof. Like it's very much a passion project because I mean, I just couldn't find that information like super digestible anywhere else. And I think it's really missing in the industry. And because anyone can work in the industry and you can own a bar without ever having worked in hospitality before, there's just a huge gap of knowledge there as well. So,
Right.
uh, yeah, I'm just helping to hope.
I mean, tell me about your ideal client. Like, what are their problems? What kind of things that would you like to work with them? I mean, I know you don't do client work, but it's like the people that would benefit the most from your content.
Yeah, I think to be really honest, I think anyone who's like, they know maybe they don't have the full visibility that they need in their business, but they're really committed to, like, they want help and they don't want judgment because I'm never going to judge somebody for where they're currently at. Maybe they're a little bit scared to ask, like, a consultant as such for help because it's a little bit confronting. But somebody who's like really willing to put in the work to get the visibility over their business. Like I would love to help people increase the profitability of their business, to be honest, because it's so satisfying when people do start seeing those little increases and they're like, I had no idea we were losing $200 every week to people clocking in to their shifts early. And it stacks up over the year. It's such a satisfying solution for people. But I mean, my ideal client is single site. It's definitely not multi-site, super complex operations. But yeah, anyone with a bar or a restaurant or cafe that just want a little bit more visibility over what they're doing financially or even operationally as well. But I think what I'm really passionate about now is helping people nail down those financials.
Okay, cool. So they could just
Yeah.
I mean, if you did do client work, you could they would just send you their P&L and you could probably read that like a book.
Probably. Yeah. It's a little bit difficult to get like the depth of information that you need to make really impactful changes from a P&L, I think. Need a little bit more information, but that would be a very good start for sure.
One of the things that I hammer in with my clients, like I don't do social media, I don't do content, I don't do like even marketing, I do systems for my clients.
Yeah.
And when they ask me, they're like, they're like, what should I be talking about on social media? I'm like, okay, the 4 Ps: people, place, product, and process.
Hmm.
And just show. So you're the master at this. Like, I mean, like you call yourself an amateur photographer at some point, but your pictures are beautiful. Like, how would
Thank
you?
you.
What kind of advice would you give to somebody to who's just struggling? They don't know how to market their business. They don't know what to do.
I came at my Instagram and Teresa's Instagram from the point of like, why would people find this interesting? Because if you don't know why people are going to find this interesting and who you're talking to, then nobody's going to pay any attention. So if something is like everything needs basically a story, I would say to it. And it can be like educational. It could just be entertaining. So you could just be recording your thoughts, but it needs to be. Where am I going with this? I
I mean,
think,
like you talking about like doing somebody like a selfie video where people are just talking.
yeah, like a talking head video.
Yeah. Okay.
Put your thoughts
Easy
out there.
enough, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think what it needs to be is you need to be honest when you're talking those videos and not something that I really have struggled with talking to a camera. You should see how many deleted videos I have in there because when you realize that you're talking to a camera and you put on like a different persona and it's not actually you, but just you need to relax into it. Very hard to do for a lot of people, including myself. But I think whatever makes it easy as well. You don't need to hire a marketing team to get social media out there. If it's just talking to a camera, like you do stuff that makes it achievable to get it out there. One hot tip for drinks photos that I see so many people not do. If you can get two things. One is a little light to put behind the drink, lights it up and immediately makes it not look flat and like washed out and beige. And then two is if you have one other light, I mean, you can get like a $5 light from a variety store. And when I first started doing photography, I just had a white sheet that I would hold in front of that light. So you don't need expensive equipment to get really nice photos. And that just diffuses the light over the glass. Beautiful photo, like two $5 lights, a white sheet, and you can make yourself a really nice photo and you can just do it on your phone.
Huh. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that. I mean, I think it's interesting too. And it's like, these are like, I think it's also important to know that, like, for the people that are like, don't want to be on camera, I'm seeing a lot more of this, especially with CPG brands where they're like, not CPG, but fast casual or quick service brands. They're
Yeah.
just like, turning on the camera, they're like, we're in service right now, this is what's happening, and they're talking about like the real story of the business. And I
Yeah.
think what's the value of that is that people really just want to know what's happening behind the curtain. Like if they're going to buy a burger, they want to know that like there's real people behind it, that it's not some corporation.
I think unless you're a luxury hotel or a really luxury brand, like people don't want to see that. Like that's not what they go to social media for. They go to social media to like quite often mindlessly scroll or get some education or get some information or they're searching for something. And I think it's so much more engaging to have a realistic shot of somebody doing whatever it is in their business because you see behind the scenes of something maybe you haven't seen before. Whereas if you just have this highly produced content, it looks like a commercial and everyone's over watching commercials, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I think that's a really easy thing to do is just like behind the scenes footage.
And also just the stat, whenever I talk about social media in bars and restaurants, it just always comes into mind is that, like, first of all, nobody cares. Nobody cares about anything but themselves, right? And so, like, if not appealing to them, and what's in it for me, then they're gonna go right past it. Also, Instagram, just from a technical standpoint, is between 3 and 4% organic engagement rate. So unless you're paying for eyeballs, then very few people are going to see it. Like you enjoy like an audience of like 12,000 plus people on your Instagram, and like far more people are watching your content than are like engaging with it. But it still
Yeah.
sucks. I mean, it's still this huge multinational, like it's still Meta that's like controlling how many people are actually seeing your stuff. And so it's just
Yeah.
like make 100 sucky videos first, you know, like get that out of the way before you're cool.
I mean, if you scroll back in time, my stuff when I first started was, my Lord, it's so embarrassing. But I bet you in a year from now, I'll be embarrassed by what I was putting out now. But it doesn't matter, because as long as it's my key thing, and this is like every podcaster's thing, but if you make something, just the next time you do it, just try and improve one thing about it. And in 1 year, the amount of improvement my content has had, and there was like 1 month where it clicked, and I went from like very low engagement to like doubling my audience in 1 month. So, and like great engagement. So it's just like, just keep trying and something will eventually click.
Yeah, that's straight out of Atomic Habits, 1% better every day. But you
Yeah,
got
I
to do it
haven't
every
read
day.
it, but people keep telling me about it.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. Might change your life. I've read it a couple times. Like it has. I mean, I guess it's changed my life. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all right. Is there anything else that you want to share before we wrap up?
Is there anything else I want to share? No, I think if anyone wants like just free hospitality advice or like someone to like bounce ideas off, or I get a lot of this in my DMs, which is really nice actually, but like feel free to flick me a message, because I am an open book and like I'm very happy to help with no judgment if people are like really unsure of where to go, and like I can work with people or refer them to somebody who I think would be better suited to them, or just be a shoulder to cry on.
All right. Okay. So if you need a shoulder to cry on, please be sure to check out Sarah Mars on on her Instagram channel, Overproof. It's a really remarkable, beautiful, and an incredible delivery of great advice. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really nice.
Okay. Hold on a second.